the South Carolina lake that gives up over 100 cars, some with people still inside. In 2008, a fisherman on Lake Murray in South Carolina noticed something strange on his sonar screen. He was trolling along a quiet stretch of water, miles from the main boating channels, when the display lit up with a solid shape on the bottom. It was too symmetrical to be a rock formation, too angular to be a fallen tree. It looked man-made. He marked the location and reported it to the local authorities. A few days later, a dive team went down to investigate. They expected to find a stolen boat, maybe an old piece of construction equipment, the kind of thing that gets dumped in lakes all the time. What they found was a car, a sedan, sitting upright on the lake, its windows intact, its tires still inflated by the pressure of the water, and inside the car, still strapped into the driver's seat, were the remains of a human being. That discovery would have been shocking enough, but it was only the beginning, because over the next several months, law enforcement pulled more than 100 vehicles from the bottom of Lake Murray. Some were rusted shells from the 1950s. Some were relatively new. Most were empty, but a disturbing number of them were not. Inside those cars, divers found bones, bodies, people who had been reported missing for years, decades in some cases, people whose families had given up hope, people whose stories had gone cold, and the question that nobody could answer was simple. How did they get there? Lake Murray is not a remote wilderness lake. It is a massive reservoir, 41 miles long, created in the 1920s to generate hydroelectric power. It is surrounded by homes, marinas, and public boat ramps. It is one of the most popular recreational lakes in the southeastern United States. Thousands of people visit it every summer. So how do over 100 cars end up at the bottom of a busy lake without anyone noticing? Let me tell you what the divers found. Let me tell you what the autopsies revealed. And let me tell you why some investigators believe that what lies at the bottom of Lake Murray is not just a graveyard of accidents, but something far more deliberate. The first car that was pulled from the lake was a 1992 Honda Accord. It belonged to a man named Thomas, a 29-year-old sales representative from Columbia, South Carolina. Thomas had been reported missing in 2001. He had left work on a Friday evening and never arrived home. His wife assumed he had abandoned the family. She had no evidence of foul play, no ransom note, no suspicious activity on his bank accounts. He simply vanished. For 7 years, his family believed he had started a new life somewhere else. His children grew up thinking their father had abandoned them. And all that time, he was sitting at the bottom of Lake Murray, less than 30 feet from a public boat ramp, in a car that no one had bothered to search for. The autopsy was difficult. The remains had been underwater for 7 years. But forensic examiners were able to determine that Thomas had not drowned. He had been dead before his car entered the water, a single gunshot wound to the back of the skull. Execution style. He had not driven into the lake by accident. He had been placed there, and he was not the only one. As the recovery operation expanded, divers began finding clusters of vehicles in specific locations, almost as if someone had chosen particular spots to dispose of evidence. Deep drop-offs near the dam, isolated coves with no nearby homes, a submerged road that had been flooded when the reservoir was created in the 1920s. That road became a dumping ground. Car number 17 was a pickup truck. Inside were 2 bodies, a man and a woman, both shot, both unidentified for years, until dental records connected them to a couple who had disappeared from a gas station in 1998. Car number 34 was a station wagon. Inside was a single body in the passenger seat. The driver's seat was empty. The keys were still in the ignition. The car was in neutral. The windows were rolled down. It looked like the passenger had been placed in the car, and the car had been pushed into the water. But the driver had never been inside. Car number 61 was the one that really unsettled the dive team. It was a sedan. It was empty, but the trunk was open, and inside the trunk was a collection of personal items. A woman's purse with the identification still inside, a child's backpack with homework assignments dated 2005, a wedding ring, a set of car keys that did not belong to the sedan. Items that suggested someone, or multiple someones, had been in that trunk. But the trunk was open, and whatever had been inside was now gone. Divers searched the lake bed around that car for days. They found nothing. So who were these people, and who put them there? The investigation that followed was one of the largest in South Carolina history. Dozens of cold cases were reopened. Families were notified. Some received closure. Others received only more questions. One family learned that their missing son had been in the lake for 15 years. His car had been pulled from a cove less than 2 miles from their house. They had driven past that cove every Sunday on their way to church. They had no idea he was down there. Another family discovered that their missing daughter had been found in a car that did not belong to her. She had been placed in the passenger seat. Her own car was never found. Whoever put her in that vehicle had known her, or at least had access to her body, and had chosen that specific location to hide her. The sheer number of vehicles suggested a pattern. Someone, or some group, had been using Lake Murray as a disposal site for decades. The oldest car pulled from the water dated back to 1952. The newest was from 2005. That is 53 years of evidence sitting at the bottom of a lake that millions of people have boated, swum, and fished in, completely unaware of what lay beneath. And the truly haunting part, the recovery operation was never officially completed. Funding ran out. Priorities shifted. The divers stopped searching. But the sonar scans suggest there are more cars down there. Dozens more. Maybe hundreds. Sitting in the deep, cold darkness. Their headlights staring into the murk. Their seats occupied by people who never made it home. Lake Murray is still open to the public. Families still picnic on its shores. Children still splash in its shallows. Boats still skim across its surface. And somewhere below them, in the silent depths, there are cars that have not yet been found. People who have not yet been identified. Secrets that are still waiting to be told. If you ever visit Lake Murray, and you find yourself looking out over the water as the sun sets, and you feel a sudden chill, remember what is down there. Remember that a lake is not just water. It is a vault. A vault that can hold 100 cars, and 100 stories, and 100 bodies, without anyone ever knowing. And the next time you hear about a missing person from South Carolina, ask yourself this. Are they really missing? Or are they just waiting at the bottom of the lake? Sleep well.